It's actually so fun. And it's earlier than like trivia or anything. Is it 6:30? Is that when it starts? I'm pretty sure it's 6:30, but we'll double check. Yeah, it's just like, it's low key, like lots of people can win. And if you win, you get like a ticket for free. So yeah, it's a good time. Then we're gonna go next week too. My sister and brother-in-law are gonna be in town, and I want them to meet everybody. And you know, also my brother-in-law is like obsessed with that deep dish pizza at Frothy Beard. The deep dish pizza. Yeah, it's good. It's so cheesy. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, and the calzone is good too.
But it has like a cottage calzone.
Yeah, not your thing. Yeah, it's one of your weird things with cheese. Last time, my sister and brother-in-law came to visit, like over the summer, I guess. I don't really remember, but I had told them all about this biscuit at Miller's, and like we checked online and everything, and it all said it was fine. But then we got downtown, and they were like, "We're closed for COVID." So he was very upset about that. And then we went to go get a deep dish, and they were like, "We can't do deep dish right now because our cheese grater is broken." And he was like, "Why did I even come?" Like, I don't know, not for your dear sister-in-law.
Yeah.
He was like, if they don't have it next time, I'm gonna lose it. So hopefully they will, but yeah, that's a good one. And I think we're all just so done with today. But we're just like, let's go do something fun. Everyone's so annoying today. Not anyone in this room, but thank you for that courtesy laugh.
But you're right.
I'll have to tell you about that later.
Stuff on my roof, every board, every drum machine, every this and that. You're not. You're just gonna sit there and get some more. No, that was in there all day.
Oh, I was like waiting on. I'm so dumb.
Today.
Kenzie, I was like waiting on Kayla before I let you in, and then I remembered she emailed me and told me she wasn't coming. So I gotta tell you later as well about me having to raise my voice today. Mine was to adults. All right, guys. Today, I don't know why I said it like that. I'm sorry. We're gonna watch the final video about Hamilton. And I think at the end of this video, I didn't watch it yet, but I kind of skipped ahead and just looked to see if there was any songs in it. And I don't think that there is. But at the end, it's like, now read The Raven and this other poem from World War I. We're not going to do that until next week. In fact, tomorrow, I might email y'all and tell you not to worry about coming because we're a day ahead and that's great news. So we might just take Wednesday off. And then Thursday, you'll need to do your prompt. And Friday, you have the juxtaposition and figures of speech quiz. Which is, it's like one quiz, but it's like 5 and 6. Hamilton, juxtaposition, and figure of speech 2. So it's only 9 questions, but it's about the one from yesterday and the one today. It's not hard. Like, I'm just looking at the questions right now, and I think that I could figure them out. However, if you have not done some of the quizzes or assignments, you want to make sure to do them this week, and they're already open, so you could even do them earlier if you want, and then just have nothing to do later on. And then, my God, next week is really our last week of real stuff. Almost all of you are seniors, and because of that, You know that you actually need to get your anthology and caps quiz done a couple days before I said it's due, because your grades are due on the 9th, and I didn't know that. So, in fact, before we watch this video, I'm just going to take a quick look at the caps quiz and tell you what kind of stuff is on it. That is for everyone. Ooh, huh, interesting. What the frick? I'm very confused about it. I need to do it in like, I think what it is that you have like 2 things to read, one of which is the poem that we're going to read. So that's very weird. And the other one is an excerpt from 1984, but I cannot see it. Things that it's asking is like, how does the description of the setting help to develop the central ideas in the excerpt? This character can best be characterized as, which details best show that this character is living under a totalitarian regime. Okay. Well, y'all can do that whenever you want to. All right, let's plug in and get ready to hear our final video from this crazy lady. We're gonna miss her when she's gone. I'm gonna. Boop. All right, part 3.
Welcome to what will be our final Hamilton lecture. I know you guys are so disappointed and wish they could go on forever and ever and ever. But like all good things, they must come to an end. So for this lecture, we're going to be looking at miscellaneous literary devices in Hamilton. So we're going to start with the line, I don't know what you heard, but whatever it is, Jefferson started it. So these will all be examples from other songs in the show that we just don't have the time to examine as closely as we have the others. Honestly, you could spend a whole semester on Hamilton. The idea is to give you some more examples of literary terms that will help you better identify them on your own. Feel free to go back and look at the lyrics of any of these songs. They're all posted under the additional lyrics examples. So for starters, we're going to talk about hyperbole, which is something we haven't talked about yet. The definition of hyperbole is exaggeration for a desired effect. The example of this that we're going to look at is when Lafayette tells Burr, "You are the worst, Burr," and the story of Tonight reprise. Obviously, Burr is not the absolute worst, as they are fighting a war against oppression and tyranny. So Lafayette is obviously exaggerating to make a point that he is his least favorite person there. Paradox. Paradox, by definition, is a contradictory phrase that contains some measure of truth. This is another literary device. We really didn't have a clear example in any of the songs we looked at before. However, a great example of this is when Burr says to Hamilton just before Lauren's duel with Charles Lee, "Can we agree that duels are dumb and immature?" in the 10 Duel Commandments. So obviously, this is a very ironic statement, as Burr ends up killing Hamilton in a duel later on over what most people would consider pretty petty reasons, or reasons that were dumb and immature. Allusions. Like I said several times before in the earlier lectures, this show is absolutely crackerjack full of allusions. So we're going to look at a couple more from some different songs. So the first one is, again, an allusion is a reference to something outside of the material written, a reference that they expect you to know to understand what they're saying. And this one comes from the Schuyler sisters. Angelica says, "And when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to compel him to include women in the sequel." And so this is obviously an allusion to the Declaration of Independence, which Thomas Jefferson wrote. And it states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." And what Angelica is implying there is that it needs to be rewritten to include Adams administration is an allusion to another musical, 1776, in which the main character is John Adams. That follows the writing of the Declaration of Independence and the birth of the nation. If any of you have seen it or would like to see it, if any of you are 90s children, you may recognize the actor who plays John Adams. His name is William Daniels. He's better known as Mr. Feeney.
Mr. Feeney.
Another great one that's a nod to something else in the musical theater canon is when George Washington says in Right Hand Man, I am the very model of the modern Major General. And this refers to a song by the same name in Pirates of Penzance. It's an opera written by Gilbert Sullivan. One of the neat things that he ties in there is the modern Major General from the Pirates of Penzance is the father figure for the entire show. He has all these daughters that he's trying to get married off. And George Washington is the father of our country. So it's a pretty neat twist that he puts in right there. Nobody Needs to Know from Say No to This.
That's great.
It's an allusion to the same song, Nobody Needs to Know, from the music
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to move my little thing because I couldn't see it.
of the last 5 years. This is a song that takes place when the lead male character is having an affair, which makes it rather appropriate for Say No to This when Hamilton's beginning his affair with Mariah Reynolds. In Alexander Hamilton, it also says the $10 founding father, which is an allusion to the fact that Hamilton is the base on our $10 bill. I told you, the show is absolutely packed full of allusions. Do you believe me now? The line, ladies and a winter's fall, is an allusion to the Beastie Boys song, Hey Ladies, in which they say the exact same thing. The Boy Is Mine, which Eliza repeats several times in Helpless, is a nod to the R&B hit of the same name by Brandy and
Oh, I love
Monica.
that song.
The song's actually a duel between two women over the same guy, which fits well with the idea of Eliza and Angelica both kind of wanting Hamilton. The line, no stress, my love for you was never in doubt, and Helpless is an allusion to the song Ready or Not by the Fugees. The Liberty Bell. This is an interesting one. And Hamilton, or in the Hurricane, Hamilton states, I wrote my way out of hell, I wrote my way to revolution, I was louder than the crack of the bell. This is an obvious nod to the Liberty Bell, which you see here. In 1751, Pennsylvania, their colonial government actually paid £100 for the bell to be commissioned, and it was placed in what is now known as Independence Hall, and it arrived in August 1752. The metal was too brittle, and actually during the very first test strike, it cracked. It was recast twice, and it was rung on July 8, 1776 to announce our independence from Britain. The final crack date, there's a lot of stories about it, so it's not really 100% sure where the large crack occurred or when. There is a story that one source maybe it was struck during a visit by Marquis de Lafayette in 1824. So we'll go with that one for just simplicity's sake to keep it with Lafayette. Hamilton's growl and Helpless on the line, as long as I'm alive, Eliza, swear to God, you'll never feel. And Helpless is an allusion to Ja Rule. It's a famous rapper. He does that kind of growl in a lot of his romantic duets. And you can also hear Ja Rule on the Hamilton mixtape. And he's singing a duet, and he does show off that very same growl. The 10 Dual Commandments, both songs, is obviously an allusion to the biblical 10 Commandments that God gives to Moses on Mount Sinai. One last allusion, although there are way more examples we could look at. We're going to fly a lot of flags half-mast, and Right Hand Man is an allusion to the tradition of flying the nation's flag at half-mast, halfway up the pole, as you can see in the picture here. And it's done this way to commemorate when someone important dies. Onomatopoeia. You walked in and my heart went boom, which Eliza tells us in Helpless, boom is again meant to imitate the sound of something dropping on the floor. It's a new way of saying the old expression, my heart hit the floor. Chicka blow in Right Hand Man is Hamilton initiating a type of explosion. the cabinet battles. So these are a lot of fun. They were modeled after the imminent movie 8 Mile and the rap battles that take place in there. Or if you prefer the Pitch Perfect movies, think kind of the rip-offs that they have in there as well. So there's a lot of allusions they unpacked in here. The battles take place between Hamilton and Jefferson. And instead of, say, a back alley or an empty swimming pool, they're taking place in the middle of Washington's cabinet. So the first allusion is Jefferson says, ha 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 ha, such a blunder, makes me wonder why I even bring the thunder. And this is an allusion to Grandmaster Flash's song, The Message. And then he says later, and if you don't know, now you know, Mr. President, which is a nod to Notorious B.I.G.'s song, Juicy. Synechdoche. This again is the piece of something representing the whole. Angelica said this in the Schuyler Sisters. She says, I'm looking for a mind at work. The mind at work, you know, is a symbol for the entire man. Obviously, she doesn't want to carry around a brain with her, but she's emphasizing the fact that the most important purpose in a relationship and the most endearing quality of a man would be his brain, his mental capacities. The other one that we could look at is the crown, which can refer to the British government, the Brits in general, the British Empire, and specifically to King George himself. Personification. In Nonstop, Hamilton comes in to ask for help with a case, and Burr says, who's your defendant? Hamilton says, the new US Constitution, where they're actually talking about the Constitution as if it would be a person they would be defending in court. Fun fact, Burr and Hamilton had law offices side by side in New York City. They were co-counselors on the very first murder trial of a man named Levi Weeks. And Burr was even Maria Reynolds' divorce attorney, who was Hamilton's mistress. He then tells us, in The World Was Wide Enough, Hamilton says, America, you sent for me. So it's talking about the idea of the nation of America sending out a call or a letter, some way of beckoning him in and personifying the country as a whole. And then Burr says, and wait for it, death doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. He's talking about death as a person, which again is an old custom that we saw with Hamilton as well in My Shot, where we're talking about death as the idea that it has a choice. It can pick and choose who it wants to take. A simile, it's like Ben Franklin with a key and a kite. You see it, right? From Satisfied by Angelica. She uses this simile to explain the emotion that she feels. She's comparing the feeling when she meets Hamilton to the idea of electricity of Ben Franklin and his famous experiment with testing lightning and a key and a kite. Could also be considered an allusion to Ben Franklin and that same experiment as well. An extended metaphor. So we haven't really talked about this. We talked about metaphors, but an extended metaphor is one that extends more than just a line or two, typically for an entire poem or a story or a song. Hamilton uses the idea of an extended metaphor in his ballad Hurricane. He's comparing the wrath and turmoil of the hurricane that he lived through on St. Claus a Boy to the mess that he's created for himself, both publicly, politically, and privately through his affair with Maria Reynolds and his adversaries fighting out about it. So now what? So we've reached the end of our Hamilton journey. Now you get to take all of these tools and tricks that we've covered and see if you can apply them to more traditional poetry, both in the poems that you'll be reading and the poetry anthology, which is your final project in this class. You should be looking at your selected poems for the anthology much the way that we've looked at these lyrics, dissecting them and answering the questions for each one that are laid out in the anthology assignment. But first, let's talk about your final discussion post. So you need to read Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven and Wilfred Owen's Dolce et Decorum.
Is this going to tell us anything else? Oh, okay. Because we are going to read those, but not until next week. Okay. So it is only 2:32. That's lovely. What I would recommend you do with the rest of this time is, if you are someone who is worried about your grades and thinks you might not have time to do the quizzes and posts later, I would go ahead and go into quizzes and take this juxtaposition and figure of speech quiz. Wow. I would go ahead and do that. And then under assignments, Hamilton, juxtaposition and figures of speech, part 2, which some of it will probably look familiar anyway. This is the prompt, yep. And with this one, you're choosing one of the following. I know there was another one where you had like 2 parts to it. This is, you're just choosing one. You're either picking another song that we didn't cover in the lectures, and she has some recommendations there, and give at least 2 examples of juxtaposition of any nature, juxtaposition of words, setting, characters, whatevs, and discuss how and why Miranda used them. And there's a link to the website with all the lyrics. Or you can watch the video from the Tony Awards again and notice that there are distinct changes in tempo and rhythm throughout the song. Discuss those changes and what Miranda was trying to accomplish or express with them. Again, should be 200 words in length. So think about that when you're picking your, if you do option 1, when you're picking your song and picking the juxtaposition. It says give at least 2 examples. You could give many more than that. If you're like, no, I'll just wait until Thursday to do the prompt. I'll wait till Friday to do the quizzes. That's totally fine. The prompt is due Thursday. The quiz is due Friday. But I would spend the rest of the time now working on your poetry anthology. Kenzie, you have any questions? You're my only
I do not.
oh
I just swat my water bottle across the floor.
oh no. At least it was not anything terribly breakable.
That's true.
Okay, well, you are free to go if you want. If you'd rather
Okay.
stay and work on stuff, that's fine too.
No, I'm okay.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.